Hello, I'm Anthony Hobbs, and this is my review of Battlestar Galactica, Episode 19, Greetings from Earth, Part 1. Yeah, okay. Anyway, before I start proper, I'll just show this. This is the toy of the Colonial Viper, or half a Colonial Viper. Yes, it can detach from the rest of the spaceship in case it's battle damaged, and this is like an escape pod that jettisons out. It didn't actually do that in the show, but hey, it's a cool extra feature, yeah. Well, technically, it did do it. In season 2, yes, only once do we see the escape pod feature of a Viper. So nice, attach it back together like so, nice and easy now. Anyway, this episode concerns. Oh yes, in the opening sequence we see 2 Colonial Vipers, Starbuck and Apollo, and they've been asleep for about 6 hours, so they're in sleep mode in their spaceships, yeah. And they're doing a really long patrol going, well, that's why they need a sleep period, because it's a patrol that goes on for hours. And this is significant because it's mirrored of what happens later, because later in the story, we find people in hibernation capsules who've been sleeping for much longer than 6 hours, yeah. Anyway, so the 2 Vipers, they find an unknown vessel, a small red spaceship. It's unlike the design they've ever seen before. And so it's complete unknown, and it's big enough to fit a few people in. And they've scanned 6 life forms inside that are human. Right, okay. So they report this back to the Galactica straight away. And on board the Battlestar Galactica, yes, we see Commander Adama, and he goes on what they call Unicom, where he's talking to everyone in the fleet. So we see all the looks of all the refugees and the ragtag fugitive fleet. And he says, we found a spaceship. We don't know for certain if it's from Earth or not. No, we have passed a lot of habitable planets with humans on, but this may or may not be from Earth. But we have to put the red spaceship in an isolated area because it might have diseases or stuff like that. So don't get your hopes up. We don't know for certain if this is from Earth or not. It might be, and if so, that could mean our journey is coming to an end. Now, in other words, it's a bit of a misleading title, Greetings from Earth, jumping the gun a bit. We don't actually know if this vessel is from Earth or not, so they have to find out. Well, the first thing is Starbuck and Apollo take a look, and then Dr. Wilker and Dr. Salek, basically checking for any bombs of any kind. No bombs, no diseases, nothing. Then finally they get inside and they see 2 grown-ups and 4 children, humans, and they're in hibernation capsules. So in other words, this spaceship is more primitive than what they've got. It can't do the speed of light. So if you're going to go a journey that's millions of miles, you have to go in hibernation for days, yeah. But it's complete unknown, and you have to be really careful opening it because it might kill them if you open them too early. You've got to be extra careful. So they have 2 scientists using all their knowledge to open the capsules without hurting them, yeah. In Star Trek, in the episode Space Seed with Khan, they woke him up in a matter of minutes, you know. So, okay. Well, this is different. This is a much more long, laborious process. And the Council of 12 on board the Galactica, they're getting impatient. They're saying, come on, no, we can't wait any longer. Wake them up from their hibernation right now. Why are they impatient? We're safe from the Cylons. You know, we're not being threatened by them anymore. Why this impatience to wake them up as fast as possible? Well, I suppose because, to bring conflict into the story, but also because, they want a home. They're fed up of drifting in space. They want this promised land. They want to get to Earth, yeah. They only have one clue. They've read the computer readings of this red spaceship, and it says they're en route to Terra. Oh no, they're not en route there, but they might have come from Terra. And it's spelled Terra. And Terra, that's another word that means Earth. So either they come from Earth or another planet that has a very similar name, yeah, but they don't know, yeah. And afterwards, Starbuck, Apollo, and Sheba are in the officers' mess discussing what to do, and they think, we might accidentally kill them or damage their health if we wake them up too early. And Starbuck says, well, what about the greater good? What about the thousands of people in this fleet? It's a small sacrifice to make, isn't it, to make sure we get to Earth and we're all happy. And Apollo's like, well, I don't know about that. I think, no, we don't have the rights to play with human life like that, even if it is for the greater good, yeah. So yes, they're taking extra careful precautions to make this safe, waking these hibernation people up. Oh yes, and then there's some security guards that want to have a look inside the ship right now. And Starbuck and Apollo, they have to threaten them with their guns, saying, no, you can't come any closer, get lost, yeah. But we're security men. Yes, and security men don't. This is a military operation. Yes, so you have no business being here. You can only handle civilians. And the security guard says, well, there might be civilians on board that ship. Because we don't know if they're civilians. They might be military people. So this is complete unknown. In other words, this reminds me of the story of the Three Musketeers, when they're supposed to be on the same side, but there's some dispute who's more powerful, the Musketeers or the Cardinal's Guards. In the same way, yes, who's more powerful, the military or security men? Well, Starbuck likes to think the military, yeah. Eventually, and I do mean eventually, they managed to open one of the capsules out, and one man with jet black hair, dressed all in a silver clothes, he comes out and he's very paranoid because we haven't got to the place we're meant to get to, so that he thinks they're under attack or something. He comes out of the spaceship and he has like a weapon that he fires at one of the security guards, but it's only a stunner weapon, so the security guard isn't killed, And then he goes back to the spaceship and he wants to know what the heck is going on here, why have we been woken up too early, And Starbuck says, look, take it easy. We're on the same side. We just want to know who you are, where you come from. And he won't tell them anything. No, this is a trick. You must be agents of the Eastern Alliance. And I said, what is the Eastern Alliance? Well, how can you not know? Well, we don't. And Starbuck says, we're refugees. We come from 12 destroyed planets. We're just looking for a place to live, that's all. And Michael still doesn't believe them. He says, no, this is just the sort of trick the Eastern Alliance would pull, And then afterwards, more talking. Starbuck and Apollo think that this spaceship is a big deal because it's the first humans we've contacted. And Starbuck says, no, it isn't. We've seen other humans on other planets before, outside the 12 colonies. And Apollo's like, no, this is different. Yes, we have met other habitable planets with humans, but they had at least heard of the 12 colonies or their descendants from them. This is different. These people, Michael, he's never even heard of the 12 colonies. He's never known they existed. So it could be very likely that these are people from the 13th tribe on the way to Earth. But are they? Or, well, how come they've never heard of the 12 colonies then, if they're meant to be the 13th tribe? So I'm glad this is a two-parter, because there's so many unanswered questions here, there, and everywhere, yeah. And then Michael says to Starbuck, you're evil because you woke me up too early. And he says, no, we woke you up because we didn't know any better. We think you might be able to help us get to the planet we're trying to get to. That's all it is, And so you come from Luna 7? And Michael says, no, I ran away from Luna 7. I badly don't want to get there, He doesn't want to go back there, yeah. Well, where are you going to? What planet are you bound for? And he won't tell them because he daren't the risk of the Eastern Alliance ever finding out where they're heading, And then Starbuck says, all right, listen. There's people out there, the Council of 12, they're going to question you and get you out of this spaceship whether you want to or not. So you may never get to the place you're supposed to get to. If you help me, I'll help you. Yeah, so they help them get back in their spaceship. And the spaceship blasts off, zooms. Adama was in on it, but he pretends he wasn't. And he says to the Council of 12, oh no, they've gotten away. That red spaceship, they weren't meant to do that. I'll send some Vipers to intercept them and bring them back. Yes, 2 Vipers do launch, but they don't bring them back. No, the opposite. They help them get away, yeah. Oh, and another little thing, before this happens, the character of Michael, he can't breathe quite all that well when he gets out of his spaceship on board the Galactica, because he comes from a planet where they only have 1/5 of oxygen, yeah, so the level of oxygen he breathes is different to ours, yeah. And anyway, the Vipers help him get away. Oh, yeah, and a thing about the character of Athena. Apparently, yeah, sometimes things that happen in the story are mirrored of what happens in real life. The producer didn't like the actress's performance, the one that plays Athena, so it wanted her out of the show and gave her less and less and less to do. In other words, she was a bridge officer, one of the lead characters, the main girlfriend of Starbuck. Now she's a teacher for little school children. Yeah, so, okay. Now, I didn't think her acting was that bad, but that's what the producer wanted, yeah. Starbuck was originally with Athena, then he started having an affair with Cassiopeia. Now he's with Cassiopeia properly, permanently, yeah. So there was nothing for Athena to do when she was no longer the love interest of Starbuck, which I think is a bit mean, a bit harsh. I thought the character of Athena did have potential, yeah, but that's what the producers wanted. Okay, next we go to, yes, the Colonial Vipers are escorting this red spaceship on the way to wherever it is, the planet they want to go to. What they don't see, but what we see, the audience, we see a spaceship, a Eastern Alliance destroyer, And it looks extremely similar to a Klingon battle cruiser, you know, the long neck and the stubby wings, yeah. Anyway, on board are like what look like space Nazis, yeah, and then the leader's called the Commandant. Commandant is German for commander. Oh yeah, and the spaceship is called a destroyer. This is before the word destroyer was ever used to describe a spaceship in the Star Wars franchise. So yeah, this happened before that. Anyway, they look like space Nazis. Maybe these are the ancestors of Nazis, because throughout this series we see the ancestors of cowboys, the ancestors of ancient Egyptians, and now the ancestors of Nazis. Yeah, so history keeps repeating itself. We have the same idea again and again. Anyway, these space Nazis, is that silly, having space Nazis? How is it any sillier having Imperial stormtroopers in Star Wars? Anyway, the space Nazis, or Eastern Alliance, they scan the Vipers and say they're unknown spaceships, or unknown to them. We've never seen anything like them, and they're using a totally unknown fuel. And the commander says, well, don't lose them, follow them, scan those spaceships, follow them wherever they go. And then to be continued. So yes, it's a good episode, rather a lot to take in, a heck of a lot happening, and a heck of a lot not happening. What I mean is unanswered questions, so many unanswered questions, but in part 2, yes, we find out all we need to know about these unknown characters. Okay, thank you for watching. I'm Anthony Hobbs, and I'm never bored.